Everybody, we're going to do one more VOD today, and I'm going to try to have the doggy be part of the whole thing. So if you get tired of hearing me talk, you can hopefully just stare at the puppy dog, and he'll distract you. But I was just talking with Taylor about something we discovered, and it's given us this really nice, it's kind of leveled us up. It's leveled us at Merle up in a way that's pretty unexpected. It was not something that we predicted would happen, but it happened because I was meandering. And similarly, Taylor has discovered many things at Merle through his meandering. Doggy, are you leaving? Don't leave. Maybe he just needs to get used to the adult voice. I can talk like this, though. Oh, now he's happy. Well, you want me to talk like this? I don't know if I can. Like, talking like that hurts my voice. If I talk, I can't do it. I can do it in small bursts, but like it's maybe sort of, if you have someone that's like an alto or soprano, and then you ask them to speak with a very heavy, deep bass, it'd probably be like they could do it, but it's just not their natural space. So it probably takes more effort. So it's the same with the high pitched voice, is that I can do it. Hold on, buddy. I'm looking at your nose. I can do it, but it hurts because my range is not normally there. This is more just the lazy voice. This is the I'm trying to win the love of the dog. Anyway, about meandering, I felt it was worth taking the time to talk about this some more. And actually, I think it's so important. I think I'm going to create a podcast that is going to be all about Goju meandering. That's all it's going to be. And any episode in that category is just going to be me meandering without having, like, I'm going to have a direction that I'm going to be interested in, either for stream or recording. And I'm going to say, this is the direction we're going to head in, and then we're just going to meander. We're not going to know where we're going to end up. We're just going to see where it takes us, so we can all see how incredible these journeys end up being when you meander. And to be clear, I think I started really doing the meandering, if I'm being honest, I think I first started realizing its value when I was in high school. And maybe I'll tell this story first. There was actually another story I wanted to tell, but maybe we'll have it be starting thing, high school, physics, then the big thing, my shoulder, and then little things to daily. So in order to demonstrate, I think, just how powerful this idea of meandering is, I want to give a couple stories so you can get a sense for this. This is something that I very seriously, strongly believe in. And I think it's similar to weak claims and asking questions. This has really changed the trajectory of my life. And when I think about meandering, I think it's along the same lines of just being curious, and not being curious because you want to be better than somebody else, that you want more money than somebody else. Okay, buddy, go ahead. He's had enough. He doesn't want to be held, and so, okay, I'm trying to give him cushions and stuff. Okay, maybe he's just gonna chill right here. There we go. All right, buddy. You good? Okay, we got him some pillows. We're all good. This is part of the reason why I do the couch thing, is that on my chair in my other office, he then also wants to get in my lap, but that chair is not big enough for both of us. So, but somebody doesn't quite get that memo sometimes, you know what I mean? Anyway, back to the meandering. It literally has changed the course of my life because what it's helped me do is more deeply understand things that I may understand a little bit, but not to the degree that I want to. Like I want to know, in many cases, the all the details. Not just the I don't it's not just the beautiful paint and the polish and whatever on the car. Uh that's just like the superficial skin deep stuff. I want to understand the deeper things that are going on. Like why something works. Uh things of that nature. And I think that can be very hard to do unless you meander. And part of the reason for that is if you don't meander, you oftentimes don't even know about the things that you don't know. In fact, one of the things that I recently discovered in YouTube has helped me a lot, but it was one of those things that I didn't know about. So it's not something that I could look up and say, hey, teach me about this thing. It was something that exists, but I needed to stumble across it. And meandering helped me stumble across it, which then brought it into my view, which then allowed me to understand how this thing works. And then life is better. I don't want to get into the details of what the thing is, but it's pretty great. It's something that I'm really happy that I kind of discovered. Okay, you good, buddy? All right. Yeah, he's good. Let's see if we can get him a little bit back in the photo here. There we go. You good? Okay, well, we got him a little bit. There you go. All right. Just bring this down just a touch. Okay. He's our sidekick. All right, so let's start with the high school physics thing. Now, as I think I mentioned, when I was in high school, I was a late bloomer, right? So when I was in, all right, he's left the building again, and so we're gonna go back over here. Okay, we tried. As I mentioned many times, I'm a little bit of a late bloomer. And part of my late blooming is I was meandering even in high school. I just wasn't meandering for things that were maybe academic in nature. Or maybe they were, but they didn't follow the traditional model of learning. And maybe that's part of the reason why I am a late bloomer is I've always had my own ways of becoming deeply engaged in things, and it doesn't necessarily follow the formula of a classroom, which I realize is somewhat amusing given that I've been teaching at the collegiate level now for I don't even know how long, a long time, from undergrad to grad to overseeing research for PhD and postdocs and stuff. So it's a bit of a flip, right? That here's the guy that was almost not even good enough for college, and now he's teaching at college. And I think that that's what can happen with meandering. And again, I'm not, just to be clear, I'm not saying don't pay attention in school. I'd probably be further along if I would have taken some of the earlier stages of learning, especially structured learning, more seriously. I could have been more leveled up. So it's like I'm catching up because I kind of fooled around a little bit too much. So I'm not trying to promote that bad model. Again, you do you, but school's good. Stay in school. But let's start with this first example of meandering. Maybe one of the first times I saw this really impact me is, I think it was my junior or senior year in high school. I was taking this physics class. And keep in mind, when I applied myself in school, I tended to do pretty well. But when I didn't, I obviously didn't do as well. And some of the things were interesting to me. So then I did pretty well because I was just more curious. And other things I found maybe less interesting. So I did poorly. For example, math was always pretty interesting to me. Science oftentimes could be interesting, and sometimes it could be uninteresting. It just sort of depended on how many things I have going on. So here I am, senior year in high school, taking physics, and I'm doing horribly. I think I'm taking like the AP physics class. I don't know why. Maybe one of my friends was in it. Maybe I was curious. I liked the teacher. I don't know, but I'm not doing well. I think I've got like an F or something in the course at the midterm point, and fully earned. This isn't an unfair, I'm a victim. No. I did this to me. So we get to the midterm, and I take the midterm, and I think I got a C or something on it. But on the exam, the professor, I think his name was Professor Mike Flynn, he asked me to talk to him after class. It was written on my exam. So I thought I was in trouble. I didn't know, I'm just a punk kid, and I know I'm doing poorly, and I got a C or something on the exam. So, I wait till after class and I talk to him, and he says to me, Justin, it's obvious to me that when you're trying and you're paying attention, you can do very well. But you're failing this class because you're just not trying. You're not coming to class. You're not doing the assignments. You're just checked out. And he said, if you continue on this path, you're going to get an F in this class, and it's really not going to be a good look. But he said, I believe in you, and I want to give you an opportunity to course correct. So what I'm going to do is that if you ace the second half of this semester, I mean, ace by A's in everything, the homework, the exam, the labs, all that stuff, I will give you, I think, like a B or something in this course, even though that was maybe technically impossible, given that I was like a solid F. And that inspired me because I thought I was sort of cooked, and I really liked that he was just giving me a chance. I'll be clear, I don't know that I deserved a chance, but he gave it to me anyway. And after talking with him, it was interesting because I realized, I think, in some ways that I don't know that I'd say like I hurt his feelings, but physics was something that mattered to him. And I think he didn't like that it didn't matter to me. And that part kind of struck me. So I decided at that point that I would care about physics. So I did. I started reading the book. I didn't miss any of the lectures. I changed my behavior to attend the class. And then really fascinating things started to happen. One of those things is I remember as I was learning about physics, I was reading the book, and I was not just reading to read and be done. I was reading to understand, like to deeply understand. And I got to some point in the book where it was talking like about satellites, and it was talking about how satellites orbit celestial bodies, and how the planet has a gravitational pull. And so what you have to do with the satellite is the satellite has to constantly be at an angle where it's pushing slightly away from the planet because the planet is pulling the satellite toward it. Whereas if the satellite is just perfectly perpendicular to it, so here's the celestial body, and it's just like directly at this 90-degree angle, what will happen is the orbit will decay and it'll pull you into the planet, essentially. Or if it's too far out, it will decay this way and you'll drift off. I think I'd have to double check, but I think it's more common that you will get pulled in and then you'll burn up due to atmosphere and stuff. Anyway, I'm learning this stuff and I'm getting deeply engaged. And what was curious about this is I was no longer just learning about physics. I was starting to learn about all kinds of other things that I became really interested in this notion of satellites. And I became really interested in just the variability of gravity as you start to move away from central bodies that create gravity, that are pulling things toward it, and a bunch of other things. And I remember I spoke with my professor after this, after I had done this, and at the end of the semester, and he ended up, I think, giving me an A, more than what we agreed. And part of that is that he saw it wasn't just that I was learning the material anymore. I was learning things that were tangentially related to the material to then reinforce the points that we were learning to give me a deeper and more nuanced understanding of how this works. Like, for example, prior to deeply reasoning about this, I thought that the gravitational pull on the planet was I forget what they say it is, like 9.2 meters squared or something at some. Okay, yeah, it's like 9.8 meters per second squared. Prior to deeply understanding this, what I thought was this is essentially this constant. But as I started to look at this more, what I started to learn is that it actually is at least this is my recollection, I haven't looked at this in a long time, is that as you move further and further away from the celestial body, the gravitational pull decreases. So if you are higher in elevation, like you're on mountains, the gravitational pull is less. And this is why you have things like Coors Stadium or something for the Colorado Rockies, where they talk about how it's like a home run haven. Like this field is a home run haven. How is that possible? Well, it has to do with a couple things, but part of it is the city is a mile high, and so the gravitational pull is reduced. Not by much, but enough to where these balls don't have the same type of gravitational pull on them, so they just soar more. So you take the same batter, the same swing, same pitcher, same pitch, and then the ball gets hit exactly the same way. The distance that it travels, its velocity, its angle, these things change based on just the elevation. This was maybe my first experience of, wow, when you start to meander, some really incredible things can come out of this that are outside of just what you originally set out to do. Like, I initially was paying attention to physics because I was just trying to not fail the class. And then what I started to learn about is how different sports played at different elevations would have different outcomes. The availability essentially of air is richer or something of this nature. Again, not a physicist, but the air is thinner essentially at higher elevation. And eventually, as you get further up in the atmosphere, it's no longer breathable. Thus, running a marathon, like in Leadville, doing the Leadville 100 at 14,000 feet is going to be significantly harder than running at sea level, purely based on availability of oxygen. All of this is coming from just learning a little bit more about physics. Like, a small amount of meandering is suddenly giving you insight into all of these different things that where does the physics end and these other things begin? The next big thing, I mean, there's many things along the way that led me to different various outcomes, like grad school, creating my first startup at 25, teaching at the university, all this stuff. A lot of that, like teaching at the university, this is just meandering. Is I just want to, one, I feel a certain responsibility to pay things forward. I know that I have been given a lot of gifts that I don't know that I necessarily deserve. And so I want to pay these forward. And teaching is one of the ways I can do that. Now, I want to also be clear, I'm not an altruist. And I don't even know if I believe in altruism. So if I were to sit here and say, oh, yeah, I teach because it's all for the students, and I want to make all the students better and all this, I mean, that is part of it. But there's another part of it, which is me being entirely selfish. And that is, I want to grow. And teaching is one of the best ways for me to grow. This is sort of like one of the biggest secrets, especially for like collegiate professors that continue to change their material or continue to teach different topics. Is a big reason why some of the heavyweights, I think, do it is it gives them an excuse and purpose to learn, is they can't even get out of it. It's part of the reason why I'll sign up to be on these various AI program committees, is even though I don't have time for it. In fact, I just got an email that, like, one of these AI ones that I took a short pause from, they're like, can you please come back and start reviewing papers? And I want to, but a little busy right now. Anyway, what I normally do is I'll still accept the invites to NeurIPS and ICML and iClear and SysML, blah, 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 right? And I do that, one, because I do want to help, just like with the students, but also selfishly, I want to learn. And they give me a great excuse to learn, because I then have to deeply review these papers and really understand. And oftentimes that means I'm going to read a paper and I'm not going to understand everything. So then I have to go learn something. And it's amazing what happens is after you iterate and you meander, you allow yourself to stop racing to the end. This is, I think, one of the most important things about meandering is you're going in a direction, right? Like the whole physics thing is I'm learning physics, but then I'm not just trying to learn the material. I'm starting to like think about what I'm reading. I'm exploring it in the degrees of separation. Similarly, with teaching, I'll have the material, but then I'll do the Archimedean spiral and I'll look at things that are different for this year versus last year. And same thing with the reviewing papers. I have a goal. I have to do the reviews. And so I'm still going to get that done, but I'm not going to be doing it in a race to the finish. That's not the purpose, at least not for me. There is a goal that I'm going to get kicked off the program committees if I don't finish the reviews. So I'm going to do that. But that's just in my mind, that's almost tangential. That's not even the primary goal. The primary goal is to help advance science, help others potentially improve the quality of their research, or help me learn new research strategies and things. And yeah, basically try to raise all boats, including my own boat. And similarly, that's what's going on with teaching, is all of these things in some ways are helping others, but they're also helping me. But I'm not setting out with the mindset that the goal is to just finish. I used to. And then I realized that, like, it was becoming mechanical. I was doing these things, but I wasn't growing. And I think I was becoming more frustrated and trying to understand the value of things. And once I started meandering, it's amazing because I'm learning things left and right. Now, the next one I want to go to is this shoulder issue that I had. This is, I think, far more serious than these minor meanderings. So as many of you know, I recently had reconstructive shoulder surgery, and it was because of very advanced osteo. Hold on, let's see if I can say this. Osteoarthritis in this shoulder, mostly due to extreme exertion through physical exercise. Now, in the process of exploring this space over the last few years, I started getting increased levels of pain in this left shoulder, and it was just the left shoulder. And I tried all kinds of things. I went to various doctors. I read online. I was just sort of trying to do anything I could to figure out how to stop the pain. I had seen a couple medical doctors, including doing x-rays and MRIs, and the medical doctors basically said, yeah, you have arthritis in here, but you're way too young to do this surgery, and it is what it is, so just take these painkillers and do physical therapy and stuff. Well, this just didn't seem to be working for me. That I was trying to explain it and the doctors were not listening. So I meandered. I refused to take that as the answer, partially because I was in excruciating pain. And I'm reasonably tolerant for pain. And for me to be bothered by pain is somewhat unusual. So I knew that it was kind of serious. I eventually found a doctor from Stanford Medicine who, in the first meeting that he had with me, Dr. Abrams, he basically was like, yeah, your shoulder it's just bone on bone. All the cartilage is destroyed. You have basically the most severe level of osteoarthritis that we see, and the only solution is surgery. You just have to do surgery, and the sooner you do it, the better. And in fact, there's only sort of like one type of surgery you can do. The other scope surgery is already out because it's too advanced. Then we did the surgery, and I'm still on the road to recovery, but I can tell you that this has also changed my life. I was at the point to where literally, no joke, guys, doing this, like this, that I have this Coke can, and doing this, like moving it with this arm, I couldn't do this. It would get to a point to where it would trigger something, and I would just drop the can because it couldn't handle this sort of pressure and the way that the bones were bumped. I mean, it was pretty bad, right? So this has totally changed my life. Is I can start to do exercise again. I'm not worried that I'm going to get shooting pain anytime I touch something with my left arm. It literally is a life-changing thing for me. And it likely never would have been resolved if I didn't meander. If I would have just listened to the first couple doctors, I would have just said, okay, well, you guys are the doctors, so you know what's best. I guess this isn't that bad. I'll just suffer through it. Now, this one is a little bit different, right? Because this was causing physical pain. I think a lot of people can get behind, well, if I was feeling that much pain, I definitely would keep doing this. And that's great, right? But that approach of meandering doesn't have to apply just to big things that are destroying your life. They could also be the daily things that you're doing that you are not allowing yourself time to meander. And because of this, you're not moving forward. You're sort of working in this space, but rather than testing this, like the solidity and firmness of the footing all around you, you're just standing in this one spot and saying, this is how I do this task. This is how I work this job. This is how I solve this problem. I never do this a different way. And it works great for me. So you're like, I'm just going to keep doing this. And whatever this task is that you do every day, it takes you exactly an hour. Let's just hypothetically say that this is the case. Now, if you meander, this is going to take you more time. So anytime you meander, you're going to have to do the task, and then you're going to lose some time in the meandering. But what will often happen is as you start to meander, you will learn new things. That one, I found that it can increase the richness of the thing. So let's say you're doing the task and it's going to take you an hour and you meander. So it takes you an hour and a half that time when you meander, but moving forward, it still takes you an hour. But now in the meandering, you've realized how to do the job in the same clip, but the quality is better. It's similar to the way that I'm doing these videos, is that I upgraded the mic and the webcam. And if you look at some of the early videos, the sound was awful, the video is awful. I haven't reduced the time. It still takes me the same amount of time to record these VODs, but the quality is significantly improved. How did that happen? Meandering. It took me more time because I had to record the VOD and then I had to do research. But I did the research and now we're all leveled up. So the outcome is that now everyone that watches these VODs gets a higher degree of quality because I spent a small amount of time doing a small amount of research, a small amount of meandering, and then the payoff is in perpetuity. Every single VOD since then is better. Again, the point is that I'm finding new solutions and I'm exploring new things. It's taking me a little bit more time. It's probably costing me a little bit more money, but I'm learning. I'm doing what I was talking about before. I'm standing in the center of the room and I'm putting my foot on all the pieces of ground around me to try to test their strength. And then I see, oh, I could step here. And now what this is doing is it's giving me more freedom to move around. An example of the time one, and this may seem like this is a very simple thing, but this is a true story. And it has 10x'd me. I have fiber internet, but for some reason, the Wi-Fi adapter in my laptop, which is the primary machine that I use most of the time, it's super beefy laptop, and that's because I move around between places. I'm in my home office, I'm at my office, university, different companies, all that kind of stuff. So I need a super powerful machine that can be on the go. This machine's great, but the Wi-Fi is not giving me the transmission or receiving on the internet that like my mobile is, right? My mobile shows me what I'm able to really achieve, and this thing is not. So I did some meandering, small amount of meandering. I was like, there's got to be a way to fix this. And I found a Wi-Fi USB adapter that cost me, I don't know, $40 that people are ranting and raving about, saying, use this. This is super great if you have an internal Wi-Fi that is like not Wi-Fi 6 or something. And I was like, I got to give this a shot. My upload speeds, which is the most important speed for me, download speed is not as important because I have to upload these massive files. I mean, we're talking each one of these VODs, because I try to upgrade them to 4K. They increase, this one, which will be maybe 40 minutes, it will probably be on order of 10 gigs. The longer ones that are like 2 hours, those can be 40 gigs. I have to upload that. So the upload speed is super important. With this Wi-Fi adapter, small amount of meandering, small amount, took me an hour or two. I've 10x'd the upload speed. These types of things, from my experience, are everywhere. They are everywhere in your periphery. All you need to do is give yourself time to meander. But what I generally do is I'll have a task like recording these VODs, and I will make sure that I get them done. And then I will buffer another 20 to whatever percent. That gives me time to just think about things, to mull it over. I will give myself essentially 2x the time that I need. And it's not because I'm kind of dilly-dallying. I'll move at the speed that's kind of necessary to get the task done. But then I will look at the quality. I will look at the things. I will fiddle around like we've seen with Mentor. And as I'm fiddling around the VOD, I'll discover things, right? Like I'll discover that this thing was really hurting the performance before. That's meandering. That's meandering. Just like we'll ask these questions about the Mark Zuckerberg, and we'll read about it and we'll meander and we'll learn. And when you do this constantly, what I find is the two things we just described in terms of getting things done are both accomplished simultaneously. It may take a little while, but what I generally find is you have the task, it takes you 100% of your time. If you allow yourself time to meander until you reach some sort of optimal state or good enough state, what I think you'll find is one, meandering will help you improve the quality. Unless, of course, you're already a master. But oftentimes, I think people get confused in thinking just because you've done something for a very long period of time does not mean you're a master. Like, I know people that have been, let's say, programming for 30 years, and they've been programming for 30 years kind of in not the best way. So try not to just use the idea that just because you've done something for a very long period of time that you're an expert. But it just means that you have been doing it for a very long period of time. It could be that you're an expert, but these things are not necessarily inclusive of each other. They don't always have to be present simultaneously. So for today, my hope is that maybe this inspires you to think about this meandering thing in a serious way and consider things that you're doing today that maybe you're taking for granted. Maybe it's something as simple as cleaning the kitchen or doing the laundry or your commute to work, right? Little things that maybe if you shifted the time that you left for work a little bit earlier, a little bit later, you could reduce your commute time. Maybe if you looked at the route that you're taking right now, considering the traffic that you have when you leave at that fixed time, maybe there's a slightly better route that has emerged in the last few months that you didn't know about, and you likely wouldn't know about unless you meandered. Those types of things. So give it a shot. Let me know what you think. This is, again, you do you, but this has been highly instrumental and beneficial for me in my own life in a very real way. I mean, I've given you some examples here that you can see this, like, no joke. This has definitely leveled me up. And I would love if it's something that could level some of you up. And also, if you end up doing this and you find the meandering does level you up, I would love, and I think all of us would love, to hear your stories, to hear what it is you did that helped level you up. This is something that I do at the university, is I will ask the students at the end of the quarter how they feel about the virtues. And if they feel that the virtues have been helpful, if they have, which ones. And I get a variety of answers. The one that is sort of the most common is weak claims. The students tend to tell me that once they understand weak claims versus strong claims, that can often be a game changer. They find that people tend to be less argumentative with them. They tend to be more receptive to them. They find that they're also more receptive to people. All of this stuff. I also hear lots of interesting feedback on small footsteps. That one seems to really do it. And then this one, meandering. It can be really easy in the daily grind to just say, oh, I have this thing I need to do. I'm going to do it. And then I'm going to go on the next thing. And you never stop and say, okay, I'm going to do this thing. But is there a better way? And if you think about it, if it's something that you're doing every day, or maybe it's something that you do once a week, but you're going to do it for the rest of your life, how many times is that going to be? And how much time and how much quality could be improved if you spent a small amount of time outside of just the doing and spending a little time thinking, what might I do to make this better? Cool. Let me know.